Hiya, it's Greg here at the Vinyl Arms. Thanks for joining me. It feels like the nation, no, it feels like the world is kind of in the grasp of a bit of David Bowie fever right now, which is great, rightly so. Absolute legend. Obviously we've got the new box set that's just come out with loads of exciting new material and unreleased gems, but also you got the last four albums of his career as well, sort of centered around that box set. For me, it's a real sort of purple patch in an already sort of diamond studded career. But I really thought his last four albums were so strong. Um, He's also got his exhibition going on at the Victoria Albert Museum in London, with I believe something like 90,000 sort of parts to the exhibition. From sort of handwritten lyrics to posters to sort of documents back in the day. I'm hoping to get down there next month in the October half term. Take the kids there. That's a new generation, who are equally into David Bowie as I am, as you are, and that's the thing about David Bowie, isn't it? It's sort of cross generational. He's not just got one sort of fixed age bracket of audience. He just keeps reaching out and grabbing new fans, even as he's passed away. It's phenomenal, really. His legacy is phenomenal. So yeah, but what I want to talk about today, one other thing that I've been reading just quickly is this book, David Bowie, Rainbow Man, which is a fantastic deep dive into his first album and then all the way up to Scary Monsters, and you've basically got a chapter, a big old chapter on each recording. And how it was recorded, tales from the studio, tales from sort of David Bowie's camp back in the day. And it's making for a really, really interesting and enjoyable read. So I highly recommend that one. But the reason of this video is to focus on his B sides. His A sides are stratospheric and big hits, and a lot of them, that's what draws people to David Bowie. But sometimes I think the B-sides are just as interesting. And that's what I want to try and capture in this video. So I think I've got 10 that I want to talk about today. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. I haven't got every David Bowie record or anything like that. I wish I did. But if there's anything that I'm missing that I've not covered on here, please chip in. Say, Greg, check this one out. This is well worth the listen. I love those kind of tips. Anyway, we're going to go right back to his early career, and we got on here the first issue of Space Oddity on a rather nice Philips Blue label. This was released on the Apollo 11 moon landing that the United States of America did back in 1969, and this was to be released in sort of to coincide with that. On the B side, you've got a really lovely version of Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud. It's a great song anyway, but this version is an acoustic version. So it's much more sort of rustic. David Bowie's voice is much more sort of obvious. And also you've got some lovely cello work, which really is right at the fore from a chap called Paul Buckmaster. So, that acoustic version of Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud is well worth checking out. So that was 1969. We're then going to sort of fast forward a little bit to when he really started to get stratospheric. I'm just going to have a drink of my tea. Feel free to put the kettle on. It might be a long video. Next, we're going to talk about the song that really kind of put him on the way to stardom, Starman, appropriately titled. Now, this is a version that was released in 2012 as a record store day release. I remember getting up at silly o'clock in the morning, queuing outside Jumbo Records. It must have been sort of 3 or 4 in the morning. My wife was probably saying something like, "What on earth are you doing, Greg?" But yeah, that's what had to be done. And this was my reward. Now, it's a wonderful record. But on the B side of this, is the Starman Top of the Pops version from 1972. This was really that sort of video, that Top of the Pops appearance is really what started to propel David Bowie to stardom. It was one of those defining moments of his early career, certainly. And it's a lovely, lovely rendition of Starman on the B side there. So well worth checking out. I think there was only 2,000 of these released on Record Store Day. So I think it's sort of pretty hard to find now in terms of a physical copy. But it's certainly YouTubeable. You should find it fairly easy in that way. Next, we're going to fast forward to 1973, and in France they released this rather splendid version of "Let's Spend the Night Together." Obviously, the Rolling Stones track, great tune as it is. But on the B side of this French version, you got one of my favourite David Bowie songs, "Lady Grinning Soul," which is a really, really nice tune. I like that orange RCA label as well there. I think that's really significant and sort of representative of a lot of David Bowie's releases back in the day. But "Lady Grinning Soul," it's a lovely tune. What I like about it particularly is the Mick Ronson sort of Spanish guitar that continues throughout it. It's got a lovely melody. David's voice is really strong, and it's just it's got a really nice vibe about that record, and it's that was on the B side to the French version of "Let's Spend the Night Together." Now, so we're going to jump forward, but we're going to jump back at the same time. This record was released in 1975. And it's Space Oddity again. Now, the first version I showed you got to number 5 in the UK charts, so it kind of stalled there. It wasn't the big hit that, it was a hit, but it wasn't the big hit that I thought it would be. And they re-released it in 1975, and it went straight to number 1, and it stayed there for a while, I believe. Not that I was around; I wasn't even born at this point, but absolutely great song, and it was nice to see it get the recognition that a great song deserves. Now, on the B side of this is a really there's 2 tunes. You got Changes as B side number 1, and B side 2 is a song called Velvet Goldmine. Now, for a long period of time, this was the only place you could get this song on this record. I think it's been on a few compilations since. But it's a really nice slice of glam rock with a really sort of jaunty, sort of beaty, toe-tappy kind of chorus as well. It's just really good fun. It's a really, really enjoyable listen. You've even got a little bit of whistling at the end there as the song trails out. And I do like this Maximilian series sleeve. I don't know, there's something very, traditional, I think, about that. Really nicely presented. Now we're going to go forward in time substantially to mid-80s David Bowie. Now, I think a lot of people kind of David Bowie got very popular in the 80s, but I think looking back, some people sort of don't connect with that music as much as maybe some of his other music. It's very polished, very accessible, a lot of it. So therefore, in some ways, maybe less interesting. But one of my personal favourite David Bowie songs from 1986 was Absolute Beginners. I just think it's just an absolute fabulous tune. I think vocally it's really strong. I think the imagery of the song, the story it's telling is really strong. But we're not talking about A-sides today, are we? No, we're talking about B-sides. And on the B-side of this single, you've got Absolute Beginners, and it's what they call a dub mix. Now, as far as my ears can tell, dub mix here largely represents instrumental. Now, I think that's a really good thing, because as strong as the A side is, and as brilliant as the A side is, and as I say, that's one of my favorite David Bowie songs and David Bowie performances. For me, it's up there with stuff like "Wild as the Wind." You know, it's an absolute classic. But on the B side, with David Bowie leaving us alone for 3 or 4 minutes, what you can really hear is some of the other stuff going on. You've got Rick Wakeman on keys and piano, and there's some absolute wonderful moments on this song where the piano is really pivotal to the mood of the song. You've also got the wonderful Don Weller on saxophone, and there's a fabulous saxophone solo in this tune as well. And you know, you get to really focus on those things when you're not listening to David Bowie's brilliant voice. You know, you've got to look around for other things to listen to. So that dub mix, for that reason, is well worth checking out. Now then, so we're going to go to his late 90s now. He released an album called Hours. Again, that's one that kind of gets panned sometimes by certain people. I personally really like it. It's a bit more melancholy as an album. You know, it's quite sort of thought-provoking. Some of the content, some of the lyrics in there, quite dark. But this single, "Survive," is a really nice song. But for me, what's even more impressive is the B side to this. Is a song again off Hours called "Seven," and it's a live version of "Seven," and it's recorded in France. I've got some notes here, in Paris, 1999, and it's really good. It's really clear. It's a really clear sound. It's a really good recording. It's a really good atmosphere. You know, you can hear the crowd, and the way that he sings. I forgot what my father said. I forgot what he said. And then he goes on to say, 7 ways to live my life and 7 ways to die. It kind of echoes around the arena magically. And yeah, if you, I mean, everybody, you probably know the track 7, but if you can listen to this live version, it takes it to another level. So, "Survive," B-side, 7, live, Paris, 1999. Lovely record. And then we move forward to his Next Day album, and "The Stars Are Out Tonight," which is a massive rock tune. You know, it's got a great pace about it, very catchy. Love the intro to the song. This was another Record Store Day release from 2013, I believe, and it's really well presented. You've obviously got the stars on the A side, a nice label there that kind of fits in with the Next Day theme. It's on white vinyl, which is nice. And what I'm really kind of holding off showing you on here, and what I really like about here, and what I was talking about earlier on in the video, was sort of his original RCA labels. And they've kind of been true to that, even though it's on Columbia Records. I think it's brilliant. You flip over to the B side, and you've got the B side there showing the RCA logo there for the song "Where Are We Now?" And "Where Are We Now" is a really sort of soaring tune. Again, very melancholy. David's voice is very sort of thick and strong on it. But as I say, very sort of melancholic. He plays the keyboards as well on this tune really well. And you've also got Tony Visconti, who does the strings on this tune as well, and it all works together beautifully as a track. As I say, you don't need to go out and buy this. I showed you that more for that label there, which is kind of sort of interesting to geeks like me. But in terms of the song, it's readily available on the Next Day album and what have you. Now, not all of these David Bowie sort of unique B-sides were on vinyl. You know, there was a period in his career like for most artists, particularly in sort of the noughties, late 90s, where they stopped releasing vinyl. You know, it was deemed either too expensive or not a market for it, which is quite ironic when we look at where we are now with our musical buying habits. But a couple of tunes that I want to just mention and highlight. First of all is David Bowie, "Hello Space Boy." This is the Pet Shop Boys mix that he did. I mean, that in itself is well worth checking out. You can get this on 7-inch single. It costs a fortune, but it doesn't have this B side on. This B side is kind of unique to this CD, and it's Under Pressure, a live version from I've got a note here from 1995, and all the Freddie Mercury parts. I mean, gosh, Freddie, some big shoes to fill there, isn't there? I mean, what a voice that guy had. Well, all the Freddie Mercury parts are done by David Bowie's bassist at the time, Gail Ann Dorsey, and my God, she does it absolute justice. It's a beautiful version of this song. It really is. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video is please just go give that a listen, because it's absolute 10 out of 10. It really is. And finally, just wrapping up with a little bit of a wild card, oddball one here, but I love it. And it's on this Thursday's Child CD. And again, this wasn't on vinyl. He didn't release any vinyl version of this single back in the time. But this was from, again, 1999. And track 3 on here is a song called 1917. Now it kicks off with a riff that is, well, it just echoes Led Zeppelin Kashmir. You know, it's got that really fabulous guitar riff to open it up. And then it goes down this very sort of instrumental route. He is singing, but you can't really recognize what he's singing. It's put through that much of a big sort of filter that it just sounds like an alien sort of dialing in, really. But it's really interesting. It's a really interesting composition. And the sort of the keyboards and the tone on this, for me anyway, give it a listen and see if you agree or if you think I'm talking crap. But I think it's quite gothic, you know, really, in the way that it comes across. But yeah, 1917, track 3 on the Thursday's Child CD from 1999. So there we go. That's David Bowie's absolute B-sides. Did you see what I did there? I'd love your feedback on this. Have you heard these tunes? Is there any of those tunes you'd like to hear? Is there any that I'm missing that you think, Greg, check this out? You know, just good to talk. Anyway, again, thanks for watching. Conscious it's been a long one. Hope you managed to get a tea or a coffee going, and speak later. Bye-bye.